Okay, good afternoon, everyone. If you'd be kind enough to go ahead and grab a little something to eat or drink, and then take your seats and we'll get started. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll ask Rabbi Shimon to give some opening remarks. Rabbi?
Welcome. Good afternoon. I personally am very excited to be here today, and I look out at a room of outstanding people. I'd like to start with a story. Imagine yourself a young teenage student in Brooklyn and standing and listening to one of the great leaders of world Jewry, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, about 50 years ago, in the middle of the 70s, just start speaking about how Jews that are involved in the criminal justice system, that are stuck in a prison, should not be forgotten about. Can you imagine the vision and what a progressive thought that was back then? That people that have committed crimes, all of a sudden, there's a world leader saying, don't forget about them. Make sure they could light the menorah. Make sure they could do Passover. They could hear the Megillah on Purim. They get kosher food. Make sure they're not forgotten about. And it was not until about 5 or 6 years later in 1980 when this young student got married and moved to Chicago to work for the Rebbe in Lubavitch Chabad of Illinois under Rabbi Moskowitz of blessed memory. And that young student is myself. Within a month of me being in Chicago, one of the first calls I ever got was to help 2 Jews that were in the Stateville Penitentiary to get their needs for Passover. But we'll get back to that story in a moment. Now I'd like to give honor to 3 groups of people. The first group are our supporters, our sponsors of the event, the Crane Mailing Foundation, Prodish Produce, the Sheppard Law Firm, and the Walder Foundation, and our partners who I've met along the way. We like to highlight one of these organizations, whether it's the ARC, but this year it's the Decalogue Society of Lawyers, of Jewish lawyers, who will soon be reaching the milestone of their 90th year. And we are recognizing them and their executive director, Aviva Patt, today. And another group that we cannot do the work we do without are the volunteers. The volunteers who are here today, who set up the room so beautifully, or who deliver our holiday packages. Those who deliver our holiday packages, whether it's Rosh Hashanah or Purim or Passover or coming up to Shavuos, just so our clients should know they're not forgotten and somebody remembers them. And there's a group of people that are not well known. This group of people are a group of victims, unfortunately, victims of the criminal justice system. You're asking, how could there be victims? Well, for every person that's inside, there's another 8 to 10 family members, mothers, fathers, brothers, children that are affected adversely by an incarceration, by the criminal justice system. And this is a group that feels such shame. Sometimes they're shunned by the very communities they're in. Some of them stay hidden and don't even want to come out. And we are here to honor those mothers and children because we stand with them side by side. We shepherd them. We bring them to the different community organizations, and we see them through. And we have one of those mothers today, Barbara Belsky, that we are honoring for her tenacity and her strength. And last but not least, when we need to lift ourselves as a society, we need to, just like a building, if you want to lift it up, you have to put the lever on the bottom of the building, and that lifts the entire building up. The society can only lift itself if it lifts those on the margins. Everybody in the room here has had a horrible moment in their life, myself included. I even had one today. And we don't want to be remembered by our worst moment in our life. We don't want that to haunt us and be with us for the rest of our life. So our clients, starting from that progressive talk by the Rebbe that I shared with you in 1976, we are an organization. We don't just talk the talk. We don't just say there's inherent goodness in every person. We walk the walk. We go out and we meet these people face to face, sometimes through a chuckle, sometimes through bars, sometimes in a room. But we bring out that inherent goodness. And our clients that we stay with for life, once they get out, they never go back inside, with rare exception. At least 9 out of the 10 people that we encounter with stay out the rest of their life. And that is not like the rest of the country. The Bureau of Prisons shows that 50 to 70% of people within 5 years go back, but not Hinda clients. That is not where it stops. We also have clients that don't just stay out, but they actually raise up and they shine and they become leaders in the community. To coin a phrase in another organization, there's a group called Lead with Conviction. And it's a leadership program for people who are convicted, but then they turn into leaders. We have one of those leaders today, and we're going to be honoring Nick Seidel, who you'll hear a little about of his story a little later. And now I am honored. I'm going to hand over the podium to our Master of Ceremonies today, one of our board members, Professor Mark Buselick. Mark Buselick is a retired 39-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department, most recently the district commander of the 19th Town Hall District. And he has gone back to school and earned for an administration degree for a PhD from Criminology Law and Justice program at UIC. Professor Buselick has taught 25 years at UIC, Oakton College, and Illinois Institute of Technology, and he has many other accolades. But now I'd like to welcome Mark to MC the rest of the program.
Well, thank you, and it's such a lovely afternoon. It just occurred to me that I'm pretty sure the last time a rabbi introduced me was my bar mitzvah, so we'll see if we can do this. Anyway, I want to thank Rabbi Shimon and the Hinda Institute organization for asking me to be with you today. This is a tremendous honor. This fits well within my academic and professional interests in expanding what has come to be known as the criminal legal system and restoring it to the criminal justice system, starting with the 911 system, thank you, law enforcement, prosecution, the judiciary, corrections, and this very critical element, and that is reentry. So thank you. Okay, now for the reason that we're here, we will start with the Volunteer of the Year Award, you'll have to excuse me as I put my reading glasses on. I have reached that point. The Volunteer of the Year Award is given to a volunteer who makes a difference through their deep passion and sincere commitment to the cause. This year, we're going to recognize Rahmiel Drizin. Rahmiel is a retired assistant Cook County public defender. He served for nearly 30 years in a position primarily doing appellate and post-conviction work. He did his undergraduate work at Penn State, followed by obtaining his law degree at Northwestern in 1985. Rahmiel Hayyim Drizin currently serves as the head of Hinda Institute's Legal Advisory Committee. He volunteers to visit clients in Cook County Jail, offering hope and comfort, and helps them to make legal connections. He also helps families and clients dealing with reentry. Rahmiel Hayyim is endlessly compassionate and committed to the ideals of Hinda of 0% recidivism, 100% acceptance. He is an immeasurable asset and gift to Hinda. Get that picture first.
Good afternoon. What a tremendous honor to be here to receive the Hinda Volunteer of the Year Award. It's amazing to see. I see friends here that surprised me by their coming. People have traveled far, people I've known for a long time. I am deeply honored. See, I first learned of Hinda probably some 15 years ago when I met Rabbi Shimon in the office of the Cook County Public Defender, in my defender's supervisor's office, Lester Finkel. And I learned about Hinda and its importance then. When I decided to retire from the office in 2022, I made sure to contact Rabbi Shimon to apprise him of my desire to volunteer and do pro bono work for Hinda. It's no coincidence that I received this award in a ceremony discussing justice and compassion. See, when I first became a public defender some 30 years ago, I learned that my name, Rahmiel Hayyim, means compassion of God and life. And our sages of blessed memory tell us that the last semblance of prophecy amongst Jews is the Hebrew name given by their parents to the child. This knowledge that my name means Rahmiel Hayyim, compassion and life, has fueled my request to do my job, namely to bring both compassion and justice to Jewish detainees in Illinois. At Hinda, I have been fortunate to chair our Legal Advisory Committee, where we meet on Zoom with a dozen or so Jewish lawyers, many who are here today, to analyze our cases. This meeting allows us to access the collective wisdom of our skilled legal minds to assess issues of criminal law, domestic relations, immigration, landlord-tenant, amongst others. This committee, formed when I began my work at Hinda, has served to also support our devoted caseworkers, many who are here today, to provide legal answers to their questions concerning our clients. I visited Cook County Prison to do chaplaincy work, and I've taught classes to our clients about Jewish aspects of our legal system. Fortunate are we to have such an important organization as Hinda in our midst. Fortunate are we to support this organization, and fortunate am I to be able to continue to contribute in the struggle to ensure justice and compassion to our troubled clients. Thank you so much.
Thank you and congratulations. This next recognition is the Evan Malling Mother of the Year Award, given to a mother who displays unconditional love, devotion, and tenacity in the face of great adversity. This year, this award is going to Barbara Belsky. She is a registered nurse, certified in gerontological nursing, and has predominantly been working in the long-term care industry. Barbara is an extremely hard worker and one of the best fundraisers during the campaign. She also helps with packaging and cooking for the holidays, as every Jewish mother should. When Barbara is on a project, we know we will get results. Within our culture, there's a stereotype of the perfect mother. Barbara's perseverance, tenacity, and hope for her children during her continual challenges deserves special recognition from all of us at Hinda. While she's on her way up, I'd like to give you just a little brief idea of the person who this award is named for. Evan Beatrice Malling was a very accomplished individual. She excelled in many areas in her short life. Growing up, Evan was accepted to the Latin School of Chicago, a very selective elementary, middle school, and high school. She pursued her studies at the University of Illinois, majoring in accounting. She was a true pioneer. She established the first business sorority for women at the U of I. Upon completing her education, Evan entered the business world, where she held an executive position at Goldberg's Fashion Forum. Most importantly, Evan was an extremely giving person. It is truly fitting that her life is being commemorated by the Hinda Institute, an organization that is dedicated to caring for people throughout the state of Illinois, and that we recognize Barbara Belsky in this way.
Asking me to speak for only 2 minutes is like asking Jews to not eat at Kiddush. All kidding aside, I want to thank the Hinda Institute for this honor. Although I'm not so sure I really deserve it. I also want to thank all my family and friends for coming today for this special event. Growing up, one of 5 children, and having an OB nurse for a mom, all I ever wanted was to get married and have children of my own. 31 years ago, I was blessed to marry Larry Noodleman. And after a long, hard 5 years, our son Moshe Zavadia joined our family. 3 years later, our daughter Rahmiel Miriam was born. We were so overjoyed. We had our family. They say parenting, my eyes are blurry, I can't read what I wrote. They say parenting is never how anyone imagines it, but I was not prepared for the challenges we faced with our children. Don't get me wrong, I love them dearly and wouldn't trade them for any other children in the world. But as a family, we have felt so alone in our community, feeling like no one understood what we were going through and maybe didn't really want to know. We had no one to really talk to, and we're afraid of being judged. So basically, we talked to Hashem a lot. It was only when we met Rabbi Shimon and later his lovely wife did we feel anyone really was there to support us. Hinda is more than an organization. It's a little but mighty community, having more Jewish families, helping more Jewish families than you can even imagine. We as a community need to support them and all the families that they support. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. We should love our neighbor as ourselves. Thank you again to the Hinda Institute and all of you for this honor.
Well, thank you. Our next recognition is the Hinda Hero Award, which is given to a client who embodies successful second chances in a spirit of giving despite facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. The award is being given to Nick Seidel. Currently, Nick is a paralegal contractor for the Enforcement Division of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, here in the Chicago Regional Office. At the SEC, Nick assists the trial unit in investigating and civilly prosecuting securities fraud. He works to recover stolen investor funds and return them to the fraud victims. Nick has a bachelor's degree in political science from Roosevelt University, as well as an associate degree in liberal arts from City Colleges. In addition, he has earned 5 certificates in paralegal studies. Nick is currently enrolled in DePaul University's Master of Legal Studies program with a graduation date of next year, and plans to earn his JD at Loyola to become a practicing attorney. In an effort to give back to others in need, Nick now assists with legal assistance to help clients restore their rights and achieve their legal goals. Nick has not only rebuilt his life for good, but serves as a true support to others who also need to rebuild their lives. Thank you, Nick.
Wow. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. Look, this award's an honor. It's humbling. It's beyond my capacity to express my appreciation. It really is. Just know that you're loved, each and every single one of you who thought of me. Rabbi Shimon. Sure thing. Yeah. Is this better? Sorry. Fantastic. Rabbi Shimon, Rabitzin, Abby, everyone at the Hinda Institute, everyone who came to extend their support. I can't tell you how much I appreciate and love you all. Thank you for everything. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Nick Seidel. I'm a legal professional, and as was explained, I work for the federal government where I recover stolen investor money for the American people at the SEC. I know that's a long sentence. Before that, I worked for years with legal aid in Chicago for some amazing organizations, CGLA, Carpels, thank you to anyone who could attend. You're like family to me. Now, I'm here today to talk a little bit about my work with the Hinda Institute and their pursuit of justice. And again, I'm humbled to be granted this award today. I truly thank you. Look, friends, I want to take a moment to tell you about my work with the Hinda Institute, what it means to me. But in order for me to do that, I need to tell you first about something that I'm pretty sure everyone here is aware of already. We have an over-incarceration problem in this country. It can't be ignored. Abby and Rabbi were gracious enough to extend a couple minutes, so bear with me while I jump on the soapbox here just for a second, give you the Cliff's Notes about what we do and why it means so much to me. Friends, here's the simple fact that I want you all to ponder. Nearly 2 million Americans are incarcerated in jails and prisons across the country right now. 2 million. Of course, we hear politicians talk about criminal justice reform, and I'm glad for that. I think it's a very good thing. But this is more than just hyperbole. I'm not a prison abolitionist, don't get me wrong. I understand the need for justice just like anyone else. I want to challenge you, though. Think about the fact that the entire population of Vermont, Wyoming, and Alaska is equal to the total number of incarcerated people in the United States. That statistic should drop your jaws to the floor. Regardless of what you think about crime and punishment, it's a huge number of people who are justice impacted. And the fact of the matter is the majority of them have a release date. We need to reintegrate them as productive members of society. 2 million people. We don't just want them to be released and do well. We need them to help our society function properly. So this is a social dilemma. It requires a call to action, and that's exactly what we do at the Hinda Institute. We work to empower people's return to functionality and dignity, and ultimately happiness. In my capacity, I have the absolute honor of helping newly released citizens navigate the extremely challenging requirements of successfully completing probation and parole. Along with that, I work with a number of organizations and attorneys that have stepped up to provide legal services to our client. If any are here today, just know that you're truly appreciated. We couldn't do this without you. You're really making a difference. Thank you. Look, friends, I'm truly honored by being extended this award. I thank you for it, but I want you to know that I do this because I understand what it's like to be forgotten and ashamed. I met Rabbi Hayyim when I was serving my sentence for property crime in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Rabbi was there when nobody else was. For years, he helped me to learn patience, problem solving, spirituality, appreciation for my community, compassion, determination, and most of all, love. And this is what the Hinda Institute stands for, and this is what Rabbi Hayyim is all about. I stand here and accept this award with meek reserve and absolute encouragement because I know what it means to be a servant for such a noble cause. I'm an example of what can happen when people of honor, like you fine people that are here today, extend their time and their charity and their efforts to help someone like me who would have otherwise been forgotten or left without hope. I promise you I will repay your kindness with the rest of the days of my life and all of my work. And thank you for your recognition, thank you for your friendship, and thank you for being a friend to such a valuable and needed organization. Your support is a mitzvah, and it is treasured beyond comparison.
Okay, it's terrific. Thank you, Nick. Our next recognition, I haven't seen her. Is Judge Goldish here? Up there she is. You're hiding, Megan. Okay. Yeah, well, that's, okay, good point. I kid because Judge Goldish and I are good friends for a number of years, so I'm thrilled to be able to invite you up. There's so much I can say about her. She is the president of the Decalogue Society, that is the Jewish Bar Association. As our rabbi mentioned, Decalogue is celebrating their 90th anniversary and is a tremendous organization, not just representing Jewish attorneys, but in their social commitments. We are recognizing today Aviva Patt. And Judge Goldish will tell us a lot more, but just a couple comments. In 2008, Aviva became the executive director of the Decalogue. One day while going through Decalogue's mail, Aviva opened a newsletter which was sent by the Jewish Prisoners Assistance Foundation, which was the predecessor to the Hinda Institute, and learned about Rabbi Shimon's work to ensure that Jewish inmates in Illinois institutions, correctional institutions, had access simply to kosher food and religious books. Prisoners' rights and religious freedom being two issues that Aviva had long advocated. She sent a small donation and eagerly read the newsletters as they arrived. In 2013, Decalogue created a new award to be given at their annual dinner. The Honorable Gerald Bender Humanitarian Award, honoring he had been a recently deceased past president of Decalogue. Discussion of possible honorees went on for weeks as Decalogue struggled to find someone who could meet the standard of Judge Bender's compassion and personal involvement in helping others. After relating an occasion when Judge Bender literally gave the coat off his back, as well as his hat and gloves, to a man who was unhoused, one bitter winter day, the awards committee wondered if there was anyone who could qualify for what was coming to be described as a Tzedek Award. That's when Aviva said, and I quote, I know someone who does, and told them about Rabbi Shimon and his work. Rabbi Shimon became the first recipient of the award, which has only been given 3 times since. In 2018, Decalogue Social Action Committee decided to have a Hanukkah toy drive, and the members delighted in helping to brighten the holiday for the children of Hinda's clients. The toy drive has since become a regular Decalogue mitzvah project. Aviva is pleased to have brought together 2 organizations that are close to her heart and is humbled to be honored for her efforts, as we are humbled to be able to honor her. Thank you.
I'm going to talk first so that I can introduce you.
Please let her talk.
Okay. You can tell we've known each other a long time. We were married. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. It is my pleasure to get to further introduce an extraordinary person, Aviva Patt. So what you heard is she's the executive director of the Decalogue Society of Lawyers. And by the way, Decalogue is turning 90 this year. Dinner's coming up. Sponsorships, tickets available. But I'll let Aviva talk to you about that. Okay. I think Hinda has chosen wisely in honoring someone who truly exemplifies leadership with a dash of humor and a sprinkle of magic. She's a social justice advocate and the mastermind behind much of Decalogue's success. She has spent the last half-century fighting for justice, equality, and truth. She has been such a champion for Jewish causes and marginalized groups that she's probably spent more time speaking at city council meetings, arguing with kosher caterers, getting into it with people on Facebook commentaries who dare to disparage views, and engaging in programs to further independent voters than she has at her own kitchen table. And she manages to keep a room full of lawyers, Jewish lawyers at that, who have been trained since birth to argue. She's managed to keep us lawyers in line. She's been the driving force behind our 90th milestone dinner, showcasing an extraordinary touch of magic, the Aviva magic. She's been organizing this grand celebration, which is like a bar mitzvah times 90, and she's handled it with the grace of Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the tenacity of Judge Judy. Now, the remarkable Eva is the kind of person who can balance name tags, voter registrations, and a continuing legal education certificate in one hand and a stack of RSVP cards in the other, all while mediating a heated debate over bagel toppings. I am sure she said to herself more than once that organizing us lawyers is like herding cats, but with more paperwork. And let's not forget Aviva's sense of humor. She has once said, if you want to know who the real lawyers are, just shout out free CLE certificates and see who runs the fastest. But today, there's no such need for tactics because we are here to happily honor you. Her leadership has not only helped the legacy of Decalogue expand, but also is propelling us into a wonderful and vibrant future. And sometimes I wonder, does Aviva have a secret stash of Avivas? Are there more than one of her? How else does she get everything done? Is she living a secret life where she's a superhero after hours, solving crime, and then showing up at like a Decalogue or a social justice meeting and helping people by day? How is it that while we're on a live Zoom with her, she's also doing a registration live? There has to be more than one of her. And she's not just dedicated to social causes, but she also has an impressive sense of humor, as I'm sure many of you know. To quote Groucho Marx, politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Fortunately for us, our magical Aviva does the exact opposite. And I will tell you, during this very trying time to be any Jewish organization, thank goodness for Aviva, because she finds solutions where people see problems, diagnoses with precision, and applies just the right touch of magic to make things happen. She's a cross between Harry Houdini, working her magic, and Joan Rivers, using her happiness and her laughter to make things successful. With a wave of her hand, or maybe it's just an email or a bunch of Facebook posts, 10, 20, 30, she makes things happen. If there's a fight for fairness, if there is someone in need, if hate crimes have occurred, if the accused are being treated unfairly, if voters are denied access to information or voting facilities, if the Jewish community is getting an extra dose of Surus, Aviva is not just on the front lines. She's leading the charge. She's armed with righteousness, a Decalogue fan club, and an impressive legal vocabulary. It would be exhausting for a mere human, but not the magical Aviva. Now, I quoted a famous Jewish comedian who is not funnier than Aviva, so I would be remiss if I didn't quote at least a famous Jewish comedian. So, as I mentioned, I brought up Joan Rivers. She has said, I don't exercise. If God wanted me to bend over, he would have put diamonds on the floor. Now, while Aviva might not be working for diamonds, although I think having the respect of Decalogue is better than any jewelry, I always think that Aviva is our diamond. She is working to make sure everything runs smoothly, whether she's advocating for justice, whether she's responding to letters from rabbis to help Jews in need, or whether she's orchestrating a 90th celebration. So beyond the laughter and the planning of events, today we're honoring our diamond, a woman with a heart of gold, a woman whose integrity and dedication has inspired countless others and helped build bridges. Such dedication is only matched by her humility and, yes, her kindness. If you need someone to remind you of the good in the world, just spend 5 minutes with our Aviva. She inspires us all to fight a little harder, dream a little bigger, and always, always stand up for what is right, even if it's a little bit difficult. So here's to another 50 years of making noise, making change, and making us all believe that a better world is possible. So if we could all raise a glass to toast someone who somehow makes it happen with a laugh and a sparkle, the incredible, the wonderful, the incomparable, and yes, the magical Aviva Patt.
Thank you. Before I begin, I just have to do a quick commercial. We do have flyers about Decalogue and our 90th anniversary at the back table of the room. And I will stand for as long as I can, but I might have to sit. When I was 17 years old, I embarked on an ambitious project. I went to the Norristown Library, headed for the reference section, and pulled out the first volume of the 1970 Illinois Revised Statutes. My plan was to read all of the statutes, make note of everything that the legislature had gotten wrong, and then present my findings to a newly elected state representative whose campaign I had volunteered in. So I sat down at a desk with my pen and my spiral notebook, turned to the first chapter, and began to read. I got about 3 or 4 pages in when it hit me, I don't know anything about agriculture. So I flipped to the next chapter, didn't even make it through the first page because I didn't know anything about aviation either. Now, it's always a little bit shocking to teenagers to discover they really don't know everything, but I wasn't discouraged, and I just flipped to a chapter that I did know something about and cared very passionately about, and that was criminal justice. And I am going to sit now, I'm sorry. I found a lot that needed improvement there, and I started filling the pages of my notebook with proposed amendments. I went to the library about 2 times a week for a month, and then something else caught my attention, as does for teenagers, and I dropped the project. And even though I never finished, I had learned something, and it was something that really surprised me. What I learned is that the law and justice are not the same thing. The law is rigid. It doesn't consider human frailties or human error. The punishments can be severe, even draconian, and it's missing an essential element of justice: redemption. The ability for someone who has broken the law, recognizes their error, and is truly sorry to have a path back to acceptance by the community. Many years later, about 40 years later, is when I first became aware of the Jewish Prisoners Assistance Foundation and the work that Rabbi Shimon did in the state prisons and in the county jail, as we talked about before, ensuring that the inmates had kosher food if they required it, that they had religious books, they had the ritual items to observe Shabbat and the holy days. But there was so much more about this. And I get emotional when I think about this, but Rabbi Shimon brings them comfort. And that is very, very important to everyone, but especially people in that situation. He talks to them, he listens to them, he lets them know that they are not forgotten, that they're not unloved, and that no matter what they've done, they're still human beings, not society's refuse, and there's a path back to the community. Compassion. Compassion with forgiveness and redemption are the essential elements that need to be applied to the law to create justice. And these are very Jewish values. They're present throughout our history and in the Tanakh from the beginning of human existence. They're a major theme of the prophets, both before and after the Babylonian exile. It's a narrative of a people who have turned away from God, forsaken the commandments, and adopted the customs and even the religious practices of the surrounding nations. They suffer for it. They recognize their error, and they seek a path back to acceptance. Now, my favorite rendition of this theme is the Haftorah for Shabbat Balak, which is next month, 7 weeks from yesterday. After there's a recitation of the people's many sins, which included idol worship. And there's the reminder of the punishments they suffered for it, and rebukes for having turned away from God despite all that had been done for them and for their ancestors. And they beg to be told what they can do to make amends. Shall I approach God with burnt offerings, calves a year old? Would Adonai be pleased with myriads of streams of oil, thousands of rams? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgressions, the fruit of my body for the sins of my soul? So we can see these people are desperate. They will do absolutely anything to have a path back to God's favor. So what is the answer to their question? It has been told you what is good and what Adonai requires of you, only to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. Justice and compassion. That's all that's required of us. And how hard is that? We don't need any special skills or talents, education or training. All we have to do is reach into our hearts and take out what's already there, what God put there to guide us on the path to a good life. Devarim teaches us, tzedek tirdof, justice shall you pursue. That is our task. That is our obligation. And when we pursue justice, it needs to be not just for ourselves, but for everyone, and not just for now, but for all time. Because the path to Olam Haba is the creation of justice in Olam Achshav. For 15 years, I've been privileged to pursue and hopefully create justice with the Decalogue Society of Lawyers. On behalf of Decalogue, I'd like to thank the Hinda Institute and everyone here for recognizing our efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Our next recognition is the compassionate donors, supporters of the year who exemplify true devotion to paving the way for reform in our justice system. I'd like to introduce the person giving out the award today, Judge Hayyim Drizin. He is a partner with Grund and Levitt. Before joining the firm, he served for over 17 years as a judge in the Circuit Court of Cook County, assigned to the Domestic Relations Division during his last 6 years on the bench. In September 2018, Mr. Drizzin's alma mater, Northern Illinois University's College of Law, recognized his years of public service by awarding him its 2018 Distinguished Service Award. Mr. Drizin began his legal career as a Cook County Assistant State's Attorney and thereafter went into private practice for over 20 years before becoming a judge. Additionally, in 1999, Mr. Drizin served as president of the Northwest Suburban Bar Association and later served on the Board of Governors of the Illinois Judges Association. Here to give our award, Judge Drizin.
I know it looks like I've been talking a long time because I opened this up. My wife did tell me to be brief. I know. In any event, my wife told me to be brief, and I'll be brief. By the way, I might add, I retired from Grund and Levitt just 4 weeks ago. I'm officially retired. And I'm officially playing a lot of golf, and I'm delighted to be here today to give a wonderful honor to two people. Barry, I've known since I started practicing law. Although he's actually 2 years older than me. I don't know who has more hair. Who has more hair? Barry, you or I. And his son, I've known for quite some time, and he's appeared in front of me on different occasions. Back when I was hearing criminal cases, he used to come before me. Barry's reputation as a lawyer in this community, in the field of criminal defense, is beyond belief. He's a good lawyer. To this day, when I get calls, still, he's the guy that I hunt down to represent him. and in addition to him, Adam. He is a terrific lawyer. Now, with regard to Barry and Adam, they both appeared in front of me many years ago in a criminal case. You remember? Am I oh, I remember. And I remember Barry tried a case in front of me. And he did as good a job as he always does, but I found his client guilty. And, you know, I saw the look on his face. He looked like a batter that had just had strike three called on him and the pitch was outside, nowhere near the plate. And that's the look that he gave me. And within a week, I had a motion for a new trial signed by Adam. Okay, but they both appeared in my courtroom about a month later. And, you know, when I read through the motion and I read through the prosecutor's response, and it came time for me to rule. All I could tell from as Adam was making his argument was the look of quelling on the face of his father as he stood there in front of me after having written an unbelievably terrific brief. And I never thought I was wrong all that often, but after reading this motion and hearing Adam, I granted the motion. And, you know, and you would think that Barry was going to explode. He was so happy. And I've watched him over the years. He's an awfully good lawyer. And one day, people will be talking about him the way they talk about his father. You know, I meant to say this earlier. I just wanted to welcome some people that are here. Justice Freier, thank you for coming all the way out here to speak with us. And as long as we have some other judges here that both happen to be old friends of mine, Judge Shelley Sutker-Dermer is here. Did I say old? I didn't mean old. Now, as far as Megan is concerned, she's definitely not old. But she's in her heart, she has that old thing that makes you just want to love her. So she's a wonderful judge, and thank you for being here today. And Aviva, if I had $1 for every time I had to call you to unscrew up some of the things that I screwed up, in addition to failing to pay my dues, is usually when I hear from you right away, I'd be a rich man. In any event, today, the topic is justice and compassion, and the two people here I'm to speak about. Tzedek, Tirto, justice shall you pursue. When I look back at the work that I've seen done by these two lawyers, I know that they are the epitome of what that statement means. I know, as somebody said, that what they do, justice that is righteous and righteousness that is just, that epitomizes Barry and Adam. And congratulations on receiving this award, because you're there in the community. You're helpful with the deep compassion that you have for all clients. And as I've read in the paper, some of the worst people that I've ever read about. But you're there and you're doing your job. Congratulations and thank you very much. And now I'd like to present you with the Compassionate Donor of the Year Award.
Thank you, Hi. Thank you to the Hinda group, my dear friend, Rabbi Hayyim, who I met through my uncle before he became ill, a brilliant lawyer and author. Told me there's somebody I want to introduce you to. He's a true tzaddik, a good deed doer. I'm looking for some good deeds. I've had a lifetime of representing no goodniks. And I met Rabbi Hayyim, and we became friends, and I learned what he did. And now we study together every Monday on the telephone. He teaches me Torah, which, although I had a rigorous Jewish education as a young person, he brings Torah to life, and he mixes it with good stories and a great sense of humor. Decalogue is something that's near and dear to our hearts. And thank you, Aviva, and you're entitled to all the acknowledgments that we've always bestowed upon you and the gratitude for your good deeds. We have great judges in this community. Judge Sheppard Adam runs a Skokie courthouse. She's a great supervising judge and always rules with compassion and dignity. Judge Goldish, she's a supervisor, a very difficult courthouse where they handle domestic battery cases, and those are never easy. Judge Shapiro, I see in the back, who we met when we were opponents when he was with the United States Attorney's Office, and we had a case together, and since then I tried cases in front of him when he sat in the criminal court at Maywood, and also a great judge. Goldberg's great judges. We don't have enough, but we've got our share. So with that said, I'd like to thank my son for making me a great lawyer, because before him I was half a lawyer. Thanks to my wife, or I wouldn't even be a lawyer. So she stuck by me for 50 years of marriage and 40 years in the trenches of criminal defense work. You all should know what Rabbi Hayyim really does in his day. He gets up and he drives, not a brand new BMW car, but an older car to the prisons, and he visits inmates. And inmates, they appreciate company. They want to have someone who cares at all about them. I always say to Adam, when it's time to do a jail visit, and believe it or not, sometimes our clients land in jail, pre-trial, sometimes even after trial. I say to Adam, going to do a jail visit is like going to the gym and working out. You're never in the mood to do it, but afterward, glad you did. So that's the way it is. That's what he does, and he does it with a great sense of humor, a bon vivant toward life. He doesn't judge anybody. He treats everybody as an individual and finds the good in them. And when I go over my cases with him, and he's got an astute legal mind, when we go over our cases together, some of which came out of Hinda individuals, he's very interested in strategies and defense and testimony of defendants, and he gives me a good balance, and so I thank you for that. I thank you for being a friend. We've been to Abby's house with Rabbi Hayyim, my wife and I. We've davened together, and it's been a real asset to our lives. So this is for us to give back a little bit after 48 years of, as I say, being in the trenches, representing defendants, sometimes wrongfully accused, sometimes not so wrongfully accused. Sorry, Judge Riedman, but sometimes they're a little guilty. But we ask for mercy to be dispensed with justice. We have justice who is blown our way on a westerly wind from New York. And we feel it now. We feel that New York justice, and we love it because we all witnessed it. And I followed the events carefully, wishing that I could have been in that courtroom in the New York's Supreme Court, the trial court. So we trial lawyers, we just pine for that type of action. Rahmiel knows what I mean. As a public defender, he tried countless jury trials, 26 in California. Tough place to work, been there many times, lived there for weeks at a time on trial. It's always a rewarding endeavor. As a criminal defense lawyer, I've had a great career, lots of stories. We haven't cornered the world supply of money, but we have cornered more than our fair share of great adventures. And Adam's the main guy now. He's taken it to another level, so I'm going to turn the mic over to him. Thank you all so very much. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to say it's with particular pride that we're being honored, along with Aviva and the other honorees, and particularly Decalogue, of which I've been a board member for close to my entire career. We have an amazing leadership seated at this table. Current President Judge Goldish, incoming President Joel Bruckman, of course, staunch supporter Judge Sucker Dermer, Kim Presley, and all those at Decalogue and at this table too. We appreciate so much. Not only do they help people, criminal defense issues, civil court issues, prosecution issues, they help dispense justice in our community. They're in the trenches helping, so we're so honored. Hinda also has something called the Legal Advisory Committee. Several people don't know about it, and I want to thank my wife for allowing me, she's here, to participate after hours during the kids' bedtime. The Rabbi Shimon and Abby have assembled a group of lawyers, former public defenders, private criminal defense lawyers, former judges. Judge Riemann participates. Nick, they are serving as a paralegal for people who can't afford private defense. And not only do we have skull sessions strategizing on often how to procure their pretrial release or defend a case, but people volunteer to represent them. And it's not just legal services. They provide psychological services. I have a case, I see a father of a defendant we represented who's here today in order to try to get him out of federal pretrial detention. Hinda organized therapeutic services and lawyers, and the amount of character letters Hinda helped procure on his behalf was astonishing, and it's really helped the person. I see a client who's here who came to us through Hinda, who helped his sentence was commuted. He was able to get out of prison early based on Hinda's good work. These are real life people who Hinda affects, and I'm so proud to be affiliated and honored by the organization. Thank you.
As they run off. Our last recognition, yet not the least in any regard, is our keynote speaker, and really we look forward to hearing from her. But to introduce Judge Freier, we have with us Elizabeth Walder. She guides the strategic focus and benevolent giving of the Walder Foundation. Over the past 5 years, the Walder Foundation has supported the Hinda Institute's education and reentry programs, enabling us to help the formerly incarcerated integrate reintegrate into family, work, and society. Through the work of the Walder Foundation, Elizabeth champions the vibrant potential of Chicago and uplifts local communities. The foundation is a culmination of 5 areas of passionate interests: science innovation, environmental sustainability, the performing arts, migration and immigrant communities, and Jewish life. Elizabeth directs the development of the foundation's strategies in each of these areas. Central to every initiative are the Walder tenets of humility, optimism, unity, collaboration, and trust in God's plan, and a commitment to give back. As an immigration attorney herself, Elizabeth helped clients navigate the U.S. immigration system, including many artists and scientists who wish to emigrate to realize their potential in America. Elizabeth experienced several challenges in life that engendered her devotion to charitable causes. She exhibits a compassionate, non-judgmental attitude towards those less fortunate. Please help me bring up Elizabeth Walder.
Those thoughtful words, Mark. Hi, everybody. Rohi, when I was told I'd have the honor of introducing you at this Hinda Institute event, I thought, where do I even begin? Where do I even begin to tell this audience about your amazing life and career? You've blazed so many trails, and just like the leaders and staff of Hinda Institute, you embody an impressible desire to create positive change. You graciously persevere in the face of obstacles along the way. You persist in moving forward right past opposition and seemingly long odds. To Hinda Institute's mission of supporting the incarcerated, their families, their victims, to their goal of healing and transforming lives, you bring an expert perspective on topics. First, you're an expert on taking charge of your life and pursuing your dreams. At age 30, with a husband and young children, you decided to bring your career as a legal secretary and paralegal to the next level. By pursuing higher education, you set out to attend Lander College and then earned your law degree at Brooklyn Law School, and you still managed to run the household, do the cooking. Incredible. You're a model of empowerment and breaking down barriers as the first Hasidic woman to be elected as a New York City Civil Court judge, and then now as a New York State Supreme Court justice. You're a seasoned community leader, founder of the Hasdei Devorah Charity and B'derech, an organization that serves troubled Haredi youth, helping them earn a high school equivalency diploma and even an associate's degree to enhance their prospects for parnasa. To address the need for preserving women's modesty and dignity during emergency medical care and childbirth, you became a leader in emergency medical response. Trained as an EMT and paramedic, you've shaped and led Ezras Nashim, the Brooklyn-based Orthodox all-women volunteer EMT ambulance service. You could certainly write the book. You could write the book, the definitive book on marriage and parenting. You and your husband have an exemplary, supportive partnership and have raised B'ayin Hara a family of beautiful children and grandchildren. You're an inspiration when it comes to Judaism and a Torah lifestyle, You make it a point to publicly express your faith in Hashem, your commitment to Torah and Jewish values, and your determination to erase false boundaries in pursuit of new opportunities for women's achievement on behalf of the community. All of these accomplishments and more give you an ideal perspective to address the theme of this Hinda Institute event, justice and compassion. Not only are you an official authority within the justice system, impacting the lives of people from a wide range of circumstances, from all walks of life, you're also a stellar example of compassionate leadership with boundless energy and ideas to develop initiatives that address community needs and that bring care and healing to those in emotional or physical need. Like the work of Hinda Institute, your work has required determination and courage and going against the grain. Going against the grain. Ruchi, I especially appreciate that you and everyone are here today in support of Hinda Institute because, as we've heard, Walter Foundation, at the Foundation, we're also fans of this organization. In particular, we've been involved in supporting the education and reentry program, helping people successfully reenter society after prison. As we know, reentering society means restarting just about everything. Finding housing and work, dealing with parole and probation, catching up with changes in society and technology, and reintegrating into family and community. Hinda Institute follows up with each client for the long term with excellent results, evidenced by a very, very low rate of recidivism. And thus, as individuals and as a community, we all benefit from Hinda Institute's successful results. And now, we're looking forward to your sharing your wisdom with us. So let us all give a warm welcome to the Honorable Justice Ruchi Freier.
Wow. Can you all hear me? Oh, wow, okay. Can you see me? Usually that's the question that's a little bit trickier. I was once speaking in Florida at a shul, the synagogue, where they actually had me stand on this little step stool that the bar mitzvah boys who don't reach the top of the bima speak from. But I'm glad that you can all hear me and see me. I am truly honored and humbled to be here today. I don't know how often I get invited to speak at an event that really touches me to the heart like this event. Being in a room filled with judges, lawyers, professionals, and people who are doing good and helping vulnerable individuals when they feel all alone in the world. Everything that Hinda does really encompasses so much of my background, my beliefs, and what I try to accomplish in life. So I hope I'll be able to cram in about 30 minutes, 30 years of my life, 30 years plus, actually. And every time I speak, it comes out different. I don't always go in order, so you really have to pay attention. And I have to just also start with my disclaimer that as a sitting judge, there are certain topics I can't discuss, so when I open the floor for questions, I won't be able to discuss any politics, any court cases, any pending cases, but don't worry, there's a lot that we can talk about. So first of all, to all the sponsors and all the people, and to Elizabeth, thank you all for making this possible, and thank you all for making me feel so welcome. The Chicago accent, well, my mother-in-law is from Chicago, so I feel right at home. And I love traveling and coming to different venues and meeting different people. And I find that while we're all different and have different backgrounds, after we get to know each other, we realize that we have so much more in common so much more that unites us than that which divides us. So I will share with you a little bit about my background, how I grew up, how I was raised in Borough Park in the ultra-Orthodox/Hasidic community. I'll share with you a little bit about my challenges navigating through the legal world without compromising my values, and what I've learned along the way. And of course, I want to open the floor for questions, because if I don't connect with you and hear your questions, then I have failed in my mission. I need to connect with every audience that I meet. So I'll start with my background. I grew up in a very humble home. My parents weren't wealthy. They weren't part of any rabbinical dynasty. They weren't politically connected. Humble people from a humble home, but my parents taught us that we had potential. My mother, who's still my best friend, she had her rule. When we were growing up, she said, girls, you could do whatever you want to do, so long as it isn't illegal, immoral, or against the Torah. So even though we were growing up in a very strict home, we felt that the world was open with opportunity. And my father, he only cared about derech eretz, manners, how you behave. When he would come to a PTA, he didn't really care what my grades were. He just wanted to know, how did my daughter behave? In fact, I really wasn't from the smartest girls in school. I was a very average student. When my youngest, by the way, I have 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, like the Brady Bunch, but 1 husband. And the youngest are a set of twins. In fact, my youngest daughter, her name is Hinda. So I told her I'm going to speak to the Hinda Institute. She said, oh, Ma, find out who it's named after. Like, I have the same name. So it was the twins' senior year in high school, and they went to the PTA. And the teacher says, hey, Ruchi, I recognize you from school. I was in your sister Simi's class. So I said, yeah, that's true, and I recognize you too. She says, did you become a lawyer? I said, yes, I did. She says, you know, come to think of it, you weren't from the smart girls in the class. And I said, I was, and you weren't. But she was right. I was just an average kid. If I liked the teacher, I studied harder. If I didn't study so hard. I'd rather roller skate outside. But in any case, my father believed in us. And it's the belief that we have in our children or in the people that we deal with is what's going to resonate. I remember my father calling me up one day when I was still a secretary, and he said, Ruchi, I saw a magazine in Manhattan in the newsstand, the top 50 lawyers in the country, and I didn't find your name here. And I said, it'll take a while till I get anywhere, but I don't know if you're going to find my name in that kind of magazine. But I like to say I have the best seat in the house, because regardless of which courtroom I'm assigned to, above me are the words, in God we trust. And that's what really guides me. You know, sometimes I feel I don't know anything. And if it wouldn't be my faith in Hashem, that God put me here and I'm supposed to be here, I wouldn't be able to accomplish half of the things that I've accomplished. To all the judges and lawyers in the room here, I can't tell you how many times I'm presiding over a matter and I'm thinking to myself, that lawyer has 3 times the amount of experience that I have. He probably knows more than I do. And I'll say to the counselor, your experience outdoes mine. And sometimes I feel that being a judge is the most humbling experience ever. But let me tell you a little bit about my background. I grew up in the 1970s, and that was a great time to be a Jewish kid. Today, there's a lot more pressure put on these young students, but I was the oldest grandchild of Holocaust survivors. My generation proved that Hitler, may his name be obliterated, was wrong. That not only were there survivors, not only were there children, but now there are grandchildren. My generation proved Am Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. The Jewish nation is eternal. We will always survive. But I want to just make sure that my main message is going to really resonate to everybody, and that's the reason why I go around speaking. My main message is that we're all different. Should I use this? Is this better? No. All right, I'll stick with this one. We're all different. We come from different backgrounds. You could be from the tribe of the Kohanim, a Kohen. You could be from the tribe of the Levites. You could be so different. You could be Sephardic. You could be Hasidic. We're all different. But one thing that we have is that Tselem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God. Each of us has a unique, special connection to God. And each of us may be different, but we each have that special connection. Don't think for 1 second that to be successful in the outside world, you have to compromise your connection with God. Because what I have learned in trying to stick with my values each and every day is that when people see that you have values, they will respect you and they will look up to you. And when they see you the person that's going home to light the Shabbos candles on Friday, even when no one is looking, when they will see you the person that's eating kosher food when no one else is, and no one is watching you, they will know that you are a person of loyalty, honor, dignity, and they will trust you more. When I go to speak to high school students, I tell them, you're going to go out into the world and you're going to be confronted with challenges. And sometimes you might think, well, if I just compromise my values, I'll get the job. If I just compromise my values, I'll win the case or I'll get something out of it. But what I have learned is just quite the opposite. Now, my journey is replete with naysayers. Every step of the way, there was someone who said to me, Ruchi, it's never going to happen. So I was a legal secretary when I graduated high school at the age of 17, and I'm from the Hasidic community. We're nonconformists. We really don't change. And that time when I graduated high school, by the way, if you figure out how old I am, it's perfectly fine. But when I graduated high school, there were no college opportunities for the Hasidic women. And I wasn't going to break the rules. I wasn't going to be a rebel. But I loved law. I love advocating. I didn't know really what it was called, but I just loved sticking up for people. And my high school offered a course in our senior year called Legal Sten, legal stenography, and it prepared us to be secretaries for lawyers. So I thought that would be like the glass ceiling. That would make me so accomplished, and I got a great job, and I kept getting better jobs every year. In fact, I was earning more money than my uncles were earning at that time. And then I got married at the age of 19, and I married a Talmudic scholar, and I wanted to support him while he would study. And I was really content until I started to work for lawyers that were younger than me. I realized, hey, something is wrong here. I'm working, I probably know as much as they do by now, and they're younger than me. They're coming out of law school, they're in their 20s, and here I was approaching 30. So first I encouraged my husband to go to college because I thought that he would vicariously live my dream for me. And after I put him through college and he graduated, he went on to become a mortgage broker. I remember sitting at his college graduation, and that little voice inside me was getting louder and louder. Now it's my turn. Now I have to do it. Now I have to do it. And just to digress for a moment, I'll talk about my husband, because truthfully, he's really the hero of my story. People make a big deal about me being the first Hasidic woman to run for public office, but he's the first Hasidic man who allowed his wife. Not only did he allow me to go to school, he supported me, he sponsored me. When I ran for public office, I maxed out all of his credit cards. So it really is to his credit that I am where I am today. So, thank you. So I have a couple of stories about how I navigated my journey through the law without compromising my values. But if I share all my stories with you, it would take too much time, and I have to finish and catch my flight. So maybe I'll just share one story now, and then if we have more time later on, I'll share more of my stories later on. So getting back to what it means to be a Hasidic woman in a secular world. So something that could be like very, very minor. In the Hasidic community, men and women don't have physical contact unless you're closely related. What that means is that you don't shake hands with men. Now I remember thinking to myself, I have to ask the rabbi how the rule is going to apply to me when I'm going to become a lawyer. And I called up the local rabbi in Brooklyn and explained to him that I'm married with 6 children. I know that many Orthodox men and women do shake hands with each other. How does the rule apply to me? And he says to me, Mrs. Freier, he says, obviously, it's preferred that you don't shake hands with men, but if you're going to embarrass the guy, by all means, shake his hand. So I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to go into the room and I'm going to see if he's going to be embarrassed. I won't be embarrassed. He will be embarrassed. He won't be embarrassed. And I'm going to have to start cross-examining everybody. It's not going to work for me. I'm Ruchi Freier. My husband is a chassid. He has the long black coat and the black fur hat. I don't shake hands with men, and if you don't want me to be your attorney, there's the door. Perfectly fine. Well, God help me. My law practice ended up being in Kiryas Joel in Monroe, New York, in the very ultra Hasidic community of the Satmar Hasidim. If they looked me in the eye, that was forward. So I didn't have that problem. But at one time, I was at a closing. And I did real estate work when I was in practice, but I'll tell you also about the jobs I did as an intern. But I was a real estate attorney, and the bank attorney should have known better because all the people in the room were all in black and white. They were all Hasidim. And he starts going around the room shaking everybody's hand. And then he comes to me, and he's a nice Irish Catholic lawyer. And by the way, every story I say is true, but the names are changed. And then he comes to me, and he stretched out his hand, and I say, John, you know I can't do that. And in front of everyone, he gives me this big hug, and he says, oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry I forgot. Now, that hug was far worse than a handshake, but so much for that. So anytime I come across somebody and I have to go through the whole explanation about shaking the hands, I share that story. But you know, when I was on the bench during the first year and I was being trained, my supervisor was sitting next to me and introduced me to somebody. And the man wanted to shake my hand while we were sitting on the bench doing arraignments. And my supervisor grabs his hand and says, she won't shake your hand. And then afterwards he asked, how did she know? How did she know? And I asked my supervisor, what was he talking about? He said, there's this old custom among judges that when they would sit on the bench, they wouldn't shake hands with people, so no one should suspect they're being bribed, that someone is trying to hand them something. So he thought I knew that old custom, and that's why I didn't want to shake anybody's hand. So you never know what you might learn along the way when you end up sharing it. So I'll share one more story about when I was the legal secretary. And I had been a legal secretary in small firms in Brooklyn, and then I wanted to go to the big firms in Manhattan. And that was when I realized, that's it. I have to go back to school. But I was working in a large law firm in Manhattan, and it was the summertime. And I found out about Dress Down Friday. Anybody here know about Dress Down Friday? This audience does, but I didn't. So they told me, oh, on Fridays, in the summertime, you don't have to wear your suits, don't dress formal, because they want to make you feel like you're not working so hard. Well, I come from Borough Park. We like to dress up, not down. Every Friday, I'd open up my closet. What should I wear today? What should I wear today? Well, back then, we didn't have what's called shells. I don't know if anybody knows what a shell is, but that revolutionized the way Jewish women dress. I'm wearing one today. We have them, but they come in like T-shirts. They come in lycra, they come in cotton, all colors, long sleeves, short sleeves, and we wear it under what we normally buy, and we don't have to go to the tailor to fix our dresses. Well, back then, we didn't have shells. And I had this denim dress, and I knew that for me, for Ruchi, from Borough Park, the sleeves were borderline. What does that mean? It means it covered my elbows, but if I would raise my arm, it ran up. But who cares? I'm going to Wilkie Farr and Gallagher in Manhattan. Who cares about Ruchi Freier's sleeves, right? So I'm sitting at my desk, and we had typewriters back then, and I'm typing away. And one of the attorneys, he was Jewish, not observant, who I was assigned to work for, comes to me, and he says to me, Rachel, I see your forearms. And he covers his eyes. I felt like I was punched in the gut. You know, when I went to school, we had our modesty teachers who made sure that we were dressing in line. None of them ever impacted me like that young attorney, because the message I got from him was, I know that you're Hasidic, and I know you dress modestly, and I'm sure you don't know that your sleeves are too short. And I learned that when you show people that you have certain standards, they don't want you to let go. because people always want to have someone to look up to. People often ask me, how do you balance, your profession and your house and everything? And I say, my children were always a part of everything I did. When I was in college, they all came to a class in college. When I was in law school, they came to a class in law school. And then people ask me, well, what was it like when you became a professional? And truthfully, it wasn't easy for my children. So my 3 boys they must have been about 5, 7, 8, 9, around that age group. And I came home from school one day, and I see my oldest son, mashallah. By the way, if I say anything in Yiddish, I will translate to English. But anybody here understand any Yiddish? Oh, good. All right. So I come home, and Moshe Leib looks very upset, maybe 7 years old. Said, Tatala, sweetheart, why are you so upset? Says, Mommy, the boys made fun of me in Chayde today. The boys shepherded me. They teased me. I said, Moshe Leib, what did they say? They took the Borough Park phone book, like this size, and they looked through it, and they said, Nicht du kein Frau lawyer in Borough Park. There's not one woman lawyer in Borough Park. Was tit dan mama? What's your mother doing? I taught my kids, we only do what's right, and we don't have to hide what we do. So I didn't tell them they had to keep it a secret. I said, Moshe Leib, oh, that's terrible. What did you say? He said, I told them, es ist nicht mein Mama. It's not my mother, it's a different Freier. So I said, okay, that's an approach. Then I went to my second son, Shlomi. Shlomi is till today the same way he was back then. He's very devout, quiet, sincere, and pious, and he prays all day, and he learns Torah all day. He's the kind of young man that when he walks the streets in Borough Park, he takes off his eyeglasses so he shouldn't see anything inappropriate. So I asked him back then, Shlomi, what do you do when the boys tease you in yeshiva? He says, Mommy, ich mach mich nicht setin. I don't pay attention. I'm so busy davening and learning all day. Then I went to my third son, Milach. What do you do? Now, Milach was this cute boy with big blue eyes, blonde, curly hair with a side. He's still very good looking. Even though he has 3 children, he's still a very good looking kid. And I said to him, Milach, what do you say? He says, me, I'm very proud. I say, I have a little mother that does big things. So let me get back to the naysayers. The naysayers all said, I'll never get through college. I'll never get through law school. I'll never pass the bar exam. And even if I did, who's going to come to a frum Hasidic woman as a lawyer? And even if I did everything, Ruchi, they said, you won't remain as religious. You won't remain committed to the Hasidic community. You're going to wander off. And that always bothered me. And I wondered, why does it have to be that way? Why is it mutually exclusive, being devoutly Hasidic and also being a professional? But I had to prove it to myself. I had to try. I didn't want to be a grandmother years later and tell my grandchildren, well, Bubby could have been a lawyer, but. So I remember that first week in law school. I was in the student lounge and I said to myself, Ruchi, maybe you really went too far. Maybe this time will be too hard for you in a very liberal academic environment. For the first time, you're in classes, men and women mixed together. For the first time, you'll have professors who aren't even Jewish and have more liberal thoughts than you have. What are you going to do? I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to do outreach work here in Brooklyn Law School. I'm not going to be part of any organization because I can't commit to all their obligations, but I will do my own outreach work here in Brooklyn Law School, and I'm going to make sure that I continue to pray 3 times a day. So I need to find a place to pray the afternoon, the mincha prayer, because that has to be said before the sun sets. So the morning prayer, shacharis, you could do in the morning. The evening one, the mariv, you could do at night, but mincha, that becomes tricky. So I asked a law student who was in school with me, where's a good, quiet place, a private place to pray? I'm not embarrassed to pray. I pray on the airplane coming here. I'll always be with my prayer book. I'm not embarrassed. But in law school, to stand in the library and mumble to myself with a book, I felt that I wouldn't have the right concentration. So one of my friends said to me, Ruchi, Behind the cafeteria is a staircase, and behind that staircase is another staircase, which no one ever uses. So if you dive in there, you pray that no one's going to see you. And I did outreach work before every Jewish holiday. I had my kids come to school with me. Before Passover, we had a Passover Seder. Before Purim, I had a Purim masquerade. Hanukkah, we made latkes. I played dreidel. And I had the professors who were Jewish speak about how they celebrated the holidays. Well, the professor spoke about the fish that his grandmother put in the bathtub before Passover. Right? So we had a good time. Even though they weren't observant professors, they all shared their Jewish traditions. Came time to graduation, and I wanted to say thank you to the security guards because they were so helpful. Every time I made my event, they helped me load up my van to the loading dock. They schlepped my props for me. They kept the lights on for me. They were these two African-American, very friendly security guards. So I walked over to them before graduation. I said, Clyde, that's his real name. I'm going to miss you guys. You were always so helpful for me. I'm really going to miss you. And I said, yeah, Rachel, we're going to miss you with your little book. My little book? Well, he took my law school books way more than me. So he points to the security camera and he said, we watched you pray with your little book every day. I had no idea that that private staircase behind the staircase was a fire exit with a security camera facing me head on every single day. So you never know when you do something because of your connection to God, something very private and personal, when you can impact other people. I happen to have found out about that, but there are some times when you never know what ripple effect your connection to God will have on somebody else. Now, at that law school, at the same time, I made a deal with God. And I said, God, if you help me get through law school without compromising my values, when your children come to me with legal help, I will help them. And God wasted no time in testing me. Shortly after I graduated high school, I was on a trip to Israel, and I go on my prayer trips every year. I go to Israel to pray in the north in Miron. This year I couldn't go for Lag BaOmer. And then I go to Hungary to pray in Keresztér for the yard site of Reb Shayla of Keresztér, and my mother was born in that town, so it's very meaningful for us. And then I go to Poland, to Leżensk, to pray at the gravesite of Reb Elimelech of Leżensk. So, where was I up to? Remind me. I could go on and on and on, and I could get lost in a tangent over here. So, oh yes. So I was. Thank you for paying attention. So I was on a trip to Miron, and I went with a group of women, and one woman came to pray for her son. And her story was, she says, she's from the Satmar community, from the Chassid community, and her son was expelled from yeshiva, and after yeshiva. And Ruchish tells me my son is now on the street, he's doing drugs, he's not observing the Shabbos anymore. I came to pray for him. And I was then very naive, and I said, I'm a lawyer, and I'm coming here, and I'm making my deal with you. I said to her, I want to help your son get back into yeshiva. And we go back to Brooklyn, I'm gonna do whatever I can. I know people, and we're gonna get your son back into yeshiva. We come back to Brooklyn, I call her up, I said, let's call her Leah. I said, Leah, I want to help your son get back into yeshiva. And she says to me, Ruchi, before we meet, I want you to talk to my friend Chani, because Chani's son Moshe is friend with my son Yankee. And he also is on the street. He also was expelled from many yeshivas and now was just on the street doing drugs. And I started to speak to one friend who had another friend, and they all had the same story. I said, what's going on here? This is my own backyard. I never knew about this. And I started to meet these boys. I met them in my private office. I didn't have enough tissues on my desk for the tears that would come down their face. And I realized these aren't bad boys. They're making bad choices because they've been through trauma. And I've learned some of them came from dysfunctional homes, and a home could be dysfunctional because maybe their father got sick and passed, or maybe the mother had triplets and can't take care of them, things beyond anything that they could control. And I started to advocate for these kids. And I started to invite them to my house on Friday night, and I'd make an extra cholent pot and serve them cholent. They would come and they would sing, and I opened up a GED program for them. And sometimes I get a phone call, hi, I'm in law school now, or I became a social worker, and to see how these kids have been, how their lives have changed because somebody cared about them, someone stood up for them. And then when I helped the yeshiva open up in Williamsburg, and my girls got older, I realized I can't bring these groups of boys into my home anymore, but I felt that they're set up now. If they need help with going for a high school diploma, I can help them. With the yeshiva, I can help them. But don't think I got too comfortable and picked my feet up and relaxed. Because one summer night, I got a phone call. Hi, Ruchi. My name is so-and-so. I'm an EMT, and I'm a doula. I'm a labor coach. And we're having a meeting tonight because we're a group of women who are all EMTs, and we want to serve other women. And we want to know if you can come to the meeting to help us. I said, women want to be EMTs? Like, what connection do I have? I know nothing about medicine. I'm just about law and order and social justice. I don't know who these women are. And they said they wanted to join Hatzalah. I don't know if you have a Hatzalah here in Chicago. Hatzalah is an amazing organization that saves thousands of lives every year. These women told me their story, that when Hatzalah was formed back in this early 80s and late 70s, there was supposed to be a women's division. And 300 women were trained from Brooklyn and from Monroe, and they were supposed to join. And then after the first summer that they were supposed to join, and their task was going to be to respond to female-related emergencies only. Some men in Williamsburg said it's not modest, it's not sneeze, Frauen raus, women have to leave, and there was no more women's division. It was disbanded. But these women never lost their dream of joining. Some of them kept on refreshing their EMT licenses every 3 years. Some became school mothers, camp mothers, school nurses. But their dream was always to be able to serve the community. And back then, it goes back around 12 years ago, the rabbi in New Square had just integrated women in the Hatzalah in his community. So all these Brooklyn women crept out of the woodwork and said, let's get together and make an organization. And someone told them, if you want to get yourself off the ground, you need a woman lawyer who will do it pro bono. And she gave them a list of 5 religious Jewish women that she knew, and apparently I was the only one that returned their call. And that was because I made my deal with God. Now, what I thought would be my mitzvah of the month, I would come, I would help them, get them in, ended up becoming a passion of mine, because their mission really struck me to the core. The mission of what our role is as Jewish women. Now, the people who opposed me didn't want me to, I don't know what the word is, maybe call it a boys club, or maybe call it, I don't know what it was, but for some reason they felt that women shouldn't join. And they decided to go on social media and say, this is part of Rachel Freier's radical feminist agenda. So I got a lot of attention. Every media outlet wanted to interview who was this radical Hasidic feminist. And I kept on saying, that's not me, it's not me. You know, they said she's doing it because of women's rights, and I was doing it because of our dignity and our modesty. Of course, when a woman is having an emergency, whoever comes, let them just come and take care of me. But at a certain point, your modesty is important to you. And I said, it's not about women's rights. It happens to be that most of the time, women are right, especially when it comes to our medical care. But you know, there's an expression in Yiddish, was man tit feiner, tit man für sich. When you do a mitzvah for somebody else, you're going to find out one day that you really helped yourself. And this is how we come into the CLE portion of my presentation. I ran for civil court judge in 2016. Okay, my uncle of blessed memory, his name was Duvi Schmidt, was a judge when I was a little girl growing up. I watched him marry my mother's sister, go through college, law school, become a lawyer, then clerk for a judge, then become a judge himself. And he was my mentor, and I would spend hours watching him in court. One day he called me up and he said to me, Ruchi, if you still want to be a judge, I'm retiring this year. You'll have to run for my original seat in civil court. I said, I have to run? I said, and I thought to myself, my poor husband, all the things I do, he has to put up with running an election. I thought I'd be appointed or something, but he explained to me that as a Hasidic woman growing up here in Borough Park, no judge is going to appoint you. You have to run. So I remember it was like around the time of Sukkot, and I was serving the food into the sukkah, and I figured, I got to tell this to my husband and my sons. Let me see what they're going to say before I make a decision. So I'm coming in, I'm serving the chicken soup into the sukkah, and everyone's seated, and I say, well, my Uncle Duvi called me up, and he said that if I want to run, if I want to be a judge like him, he's retiring this year, I have to run for his seat. So what do you think? Silence. Everyone puts the chicken soup spoon down into the bowl, and my husband looks up and he says, you want to be a judge? We'll get good health insurance coverage. Let's go for it. But let me tell you that my kids had completely turned around by then. They were so proud of me. They were campaigning in Borough Park. You should have seen my boys with the long side curls and the black felt hats and the long black coats in Borough Park. Vote for Freier, says my mama. You know, it's my... Your mom, who is she? But let me tell you something. Getting back to when you do a mitzvah for somebody else, you never know how it's going to help you. So I ran for civil court. And for the judges in the room here, you all know that we don't really have too much control over the work that we do. We get appointed sometimes to different assignments, and we're told where we're going to be sitting. And here I am, brand new, just one, and I'm told 2 weeks before my term starts that I'm assigned to criminal court. Criminal court? That must be a mistake. I don't know much about crime. I grew up without a television, without going to movies. When I was in law school, criminal law was my hardest subject because I didn't know the difference between a lineup and a show up. I said, you're making a big mistake. So they said to me, don't worry, Judge. We'll train you in judge school. Well, judge school was 3 days. And I remember the feeling of getting on the bench the first time in criminal court, and I was assigned to doing arraignments. It was a very, very busy part. You could do sometimes over 100 arraignments in one session. And I'm there, I'm still not even comfortable then in my black robe, I was still so new, and the defendants are coming out. Many of them are in jumpsuits, they're in handcuffs, and they're young kids. And I'm looking at them, and it took me a moment to say, Ruch, you have to look them in the eye. You have to. And I'm looking them in the eye, and you know what I saw? I saw the same pain in the eyes of these kids from the inner city and the slums of New York. That's my radio. I'm sorry. I always carry my radio with me. I usually keep it, I'm very, very low. This is my EMS agency with our radio. So I looked at these kids, and I saw in them the same pain that I had seen in the Hasidic boys that I had counseled in my B'derech program. It made no difference where you come from, who your family is, or what color your skin is. You were the same when you go through trauma. And there I was talking to these kids just like I spoke to the Hasidic boys in Borough Park. And I said, you have to have faith. You have to believe in yourself. Roll up your sleeves and take charge. I said, you can't control who your father was. You have no control, but you can control your future. I had grown men cry in my courtroom. And one person said to me, Judge, no one ever spoke to us like that before. But I meant every word that I said. The only problem was I couldn't see the result of my words because you would just do hundreds of arraignments every single day. And then you had the pressure of moving fast. Move the docket quickly, because if you spend too much time on one arraignment, then the line's going to slow down, and the ones who are waiting in the cell downstairs will have to be here till tomorrow morning. So you don't want to be too slow, because then the people that are waiting are not going to be able to be arraigned today. At one point, the court officer said to me, Judge, I think you have to hurry up because I did a second call for one case. I felt that this case I want to think through. Judge, the supervisor won't be happy. And I said to her, you see the words on the wall? In God we trust. I care what God thinks. And this defendant needs a second call. They kept quiet. They didn't bother me again. But I learned so much from helping the kids in my community, and I was able to take that experience and share it with all the defendants that came in front of me. I remember the first time that I was doing an arraignment and I had a media request. I didn't know what that was. And the court officers, they're great, they know everything. I said, Judge, it's up to you if you let the media come in and observe this arraignment. It's a high-profile arraignment. And I thought to myself, freedom of the press, why not? Let them come take pictures. And then I said, wait a minute, what if my brother was that defendant and he was being arraigned? What if my baby brother was standing there? Would I want the press to be in here? No. I said, from now on, every defendant could be my baby brother. No media in my courtroom by doing arraignments. I didn't feel I wanted to have them there. Now remember, I come from the Hasidic community. And I remember there was one arraignment, and the prosecutor gets up there, and he's talking about magazines and rounds. Magazines and rounds. Now, I knew magazines has something to do with guns. I did. I said, Mike, what are rounds? What are rounds? He says, they're bullets, Your Honor. So there I was doing arraignments. I didn't know that rounds meant bullets. But I felt that what was important for me was to connect to the person, to connect to their hearts and let them know that they were someone who really cared. And sometimes you had to find them guilty on certain elements, but I would always try to tell them why I'm saying it or why I came to that conclusion. I remember doing an arraignment once when the prosecutor and defense attorney were both talking over each other. They're both women, and one tells the other, stop interrupting me. She can't hear us both at the same time. I said, counselors, I raised 6 children. I can hear you both at the same time. But you know something? One of the things that I learned, which I felt was very important, that we all go through life, and we all face challenges, and we all make mistakes. Don't think for 1 second that my standing here is because I never made mistakes in my life. I made many mistakes. And what I've learned is that when you confront with failure, you learn how to succeed. No one can succeed without having failed. When you fail and you fall and you stand up and you overcome the challenges. And that's also a message that I would give to those young defendants. It's okay to fall. In fact, I would always tell my children, Moses, the great leader of the Jewish people, he made a mistake too. God told him to speak to the rock, and he hit the rock. That was a mistake. And he paid dearly for that mistake. It's okay to make mistakes, but you have to believe that you could better yourself and overcome it. So when Ezras Nashim first got publicity, it didn't even have a name. It was just a group of women that wanted to serve and wanted to help other women. I got an email from someone, her name is Paula, and she said to me that she's a documentary filmmaker. She just graduated film school, and she wants to do a film that's positive about Hasidim. And she wants to follow me and do a film about our organization. I said, no way. We don't even go to the movies, let alone be the subject of a movie. And besides, my poor husband puts up with so much. Absolutely not. But Ruchi, she said, the Hasidim have such a bad image in the media. If you let me do this film, it'll change the image of Hasidim. I said, that's a great idea, but not for me. And it'll shatter the negative stereotype about Hasidic women, that you're always barefoot in the kitchen having babies. So let me do this. I said, no way. But Ruchi, she said, if you let me do this film, it'll make a Kiddush Hashem. It'll sanctify God's name. I said, oh, Kiddush Hashem, that's my soft spot. If we could sanctify God's name, let's go to the rabbi. We went to the rabbi, and he said, no question, if you want to do something that's going to sanctify God's name, go for it. So what I thought was going to be a 3-year project was a 5-year project. I was told that I could review it before and, and make suggestions, make changes. But then I learned that I could make changes. They don't have to listen. I was told we would get 25% of the profits, and I learned documentary films don't make profits. I learned a lot along the way, but I also learned that God had a plan, and that movie had to happen, so no one should ever say that we had an easy time. Because when you want to do something right, you have to know it's going to be hard. It says in the Mishnah, Lefum Tzara Agra, according to the effort that you put in, according to the pain and the effort you put in, that's what the reward is going to be like. And they weren't kidding. They really meant what they said. Helping the underprivileged, what this organization here does, I can only imagine what the reward will be for all of you people who put your life efforts into making this organization. Because I have seen from the bench the other side. I have seen sometimes from the bench the frustration of wanting to help but not being able to. We have so many restrictions. We can't say many things. The restrictions that we face as judges are incredible. But the fact that there is an organization like Hinda out there, I am sure many judges are very, very grateful for the work that you do. Before I open the floor for questions, I want to just end off with a little story, a famous Hasidic story of Reb Zisha. Reb Zisha was from Anapol, which is Russia, back in the 1700s, one of the early Hasidic rabbis. And he was on his deathbed, and he's crying. And his students are asking him, Zisha, why are you crying? You're such a holy rabbi. You're going to go straight to heaven. Why is the rabbi crying? And he says to his students, I'm not crying because up in heaven, they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like Moses? And I'm not crying because they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like King David? I'm crying because they're going to ask me, Zisha, why weren't you like Zisha could have been? Do we know our potential? Does any defendant who's arrested know his or her potential? We don't know our potential. And I've read statistics that most people don't even reach a quarter of what their potential is. But we have to believe that we're created in the image of God and that we each have our purpose, and there's so much that we can accomplish. We have to just believe and we have to try. We know the story in Exodus of the mother of Moses, who, when the evil decree was made that all the Jewish baby boys have to be thrown into the river, took her son, baby Moses, and put him into a little basket. And it was the daughter of Paro, the king Paro, who heard a baby cry in that basket in the water. And she knew she couldn't reach that basket. But what did she do? She stretched out her hand and tried to reach it. And God did the rest and made her hand reach that baby. And the rest is history. All we have to do is lend a hand, raise a hand to help somebody else, and you don't know how much you can accomplish. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. I do want to ask questions. Does this work? Could you get it to work for me? It works? So I really want to ask, I want to give you a chance to ask me questions. Does it work now? All right, I'm going to come down and have you ask questions. Okay, so who wants to ask the first question? Okay, I see a hand down there. I need to use a cordless microphone because I have to be part of the audience. Okay. You raised your hand, didn't you?
It's not specifics.
What's your name first of all?
Lavish.
Lavish, okay. What's your question?
I'm a retired judge and public defender. Hi. I'm a retired judge and public defender, and I'm not getting specifics, but I've had one of my murder trials on record where a judge attacked me for being Jewish, for Shabbos. Did you have the experience dealing with Shabbos as a judge or as an attorney? getting jammed by judges?
So are you asking if I had a problem with my Shabbos observance? So I'm a judge in Brooklyn, and there are many Jewish judges in Brooklyn. So the ones before me had already paved the way that we leave before sundown on Friday. So I really have to say that I'm really very lucky. We get off all Jewish holidays, and we're also able to leave early before the Shabbos. So we're really very lucky, very grateful. There were times when I worked under certain supervisors who maybe weren't as kind towards it and made me keep track of every single hour that I left early and when I came back. But most of them would say, you're a judge now, we trust you, just do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yes, I guess I really am. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Dankwajan. So, Justice, I have a question. You said that you had many naysayers. Can you share with us an example of after you've achieved success and acceptance of a time when you met or spoke to one of your naysayers and just rubbed their nose in it?
So someone once told me, you're going to see, after you get elected, they're going to say, I supported you. I voted for you. They won't admit that they didn't support me. They'll say, oh, yeah, no, we knew you were going to win. We knew it. So, but I know deep down, and I just let it go. Let it go. But thank you for asking. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go here. Running around.
That's all right. Hi, Karen. Thank you very much for speaking. It's really been wonderful. I'm wondering if you've seen any ripple effect in your Hasidic community for girls that are inclined, because, you know, it's not, big careers aren't for everybody necessarily, but is there more openness to figuring out how to help them navigate as a result of the example that you've set?
Sure. So, yeah. And in fact, one of my very first interns was another grandmother from Borough Park. And now she's doing criminal defense work. Yeah, so people will call me, could you speak to my son, speak to my grandson, speak to my wife, my mother, and they come and they observe me in court all the time. I think it's a great job. I think we could do such good work in the law, and I encourage a lot of people to go into it. And they're usually worried about the timing and the hours, but I say, you know what, just let God show you the way. You know, my mother always said, if you get a job that you love, and you love what you do, you don't have to work a day in your life, right? So, thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yeah. I'm wearing my comfortable shoes today. Let me just go around here.
My name is Stephanie. I would just like to get your perception of what is it going to take for this country to move from injustice to justice.
So I'm trying to think how I can answer that question, because judicial ethics make it very strict for me how I answer questions. So I can't talk about politics, I can't talk about court cases, I can't talk about many, many different things, but I could share my experience. And I think that what we all need to do is really look on the individual level. I think that when we try to, I wanted at one point change the world, right? Change the world for everybody. But I think that if you meet people one-on-one, that's how you could really bring change. If you can speak to one person at a time and share what you want to do and share how you feel, I think that will have a ripple effect and that will make an impact. It's not necessarily speaking to a whole crowd of people. If you really mean like a real systemic change, it's one-on-one conversations. That's what I think. Okay. Any hands over here? Behind, I don't want to miss anybody. Okay, we have someone over there.
I'm Robert W. Matanke. I'm a past president of the Decalogue Society of Lawyers and the current president of the Decalogue Foundation. And it's nice to see you in person, because at Helen Block's suggestion, I brought you to an event on the screen at the height of the pandemic. and I heard a lot of what you said back then. But the question I asked you then probably might have a different answer now, and that was whether or not you've ever found yourself in a position where you've had to recuse yourself because the community that you're in is such a small community and with so many different connections, knippt and gebinden, if you understand a little Yiddish. Whether or not you're on the bench and in a position where you didn't think that you could fairly be judging where you had a circumstance like that.
So that's a great question, if I ever had to recuse myself. And I get this question all the time, but really, I'm just like any other judge. We all come with our backgrounds, our views, our perspectives, and we all have times when we have to recuse ourselves. There are rules about that. If a former employee or employer or family relative that comes, my husband's relatives, I would have to recuse myself. So there are times, though, when people want me to recuse myself, right? And that's when I have to decide, wait a second, they have a suspicion of how I'm going to rule, so they want me to recuse myself. But I spoke to my supervisor about that, and he said, resist it. Don't let people sway the court. You have to be the one that decides if you feel that you have a conflict. If I don't feel conflicted, I don't have to. There was one time when I was doing an arraignment, and the defendant was an EMT. And I told his attorney, I said, I want to disclose that I'm a paramedic. You know, I have EMS experience. You may not want me to preside over this. He said, yes, please, Judge, can you recuse yourself? Because he probably knew that I knew too much. And I felt that it was important for me to recuse myself. So I think we all have our own beliefs, and we all are who we are, but there's so many judges in Brooklyn that it's so easy just to find someone else to cover for you. I've covered my colleagues, they've covered for me. But I don't think that because I am from the Hasidic community that I'm any different than anybody else. We all have reasons when we have to, we all have times when we have to, and I think we just have to do what we have to do. My mother-in-law, her name is Freier. Her maiden name is Pearlstein. It was a Pearlstein family that lives. Oh, it's a big family, so we still have. Oh, yes. Yes, so I say it's a large family, and every so often I'll see a cousin here or there. Thank you. We'll take a picture together before I leave. Any other questions on this side of the table here? No questions? Okay, here we have questions. Okay.
You gave the example of those boys in your community who were kicked out of yeshiva and stuff like that. Obviously, your interaction with them was a very positive one and helped those boys. Do you find, just in general, the Orthodox community has stepped up more about, there's what I have found in raising my children, that these kids are more at risk than we know, and they get involved, the schools don't want them for this reason or for that reason. They don't even know sometimes why they don't want them. And these kids are out in the secular community, and they get lost. And do you find that it's changing in your community? And do you have recommendations for the community to reach out?
Yes, so thank you so much for your question. I do think that society has changed and become more aware that these children are just rejected and that they're hurt, and that we have to reject rejection. We cannot allow this to happen. And I think, again, also similar to what I said before about one-on-one, the way that you can help is, I remember when my aunt called me up and said to me, Ruchi, so-and-so's daughter didn't get accepted to any high school. I want you to come with me tonight to an open house, and we go to that principal and make her accept Malki. And that's what we did. And sometimes if other parents see what their friends are going through, and you pick up the phone and you call and you say, hey, I want to let you know about my friend and her daughter, and why isn't she being accepted, that can make a difference. Because oftentimes what I've learned is that it's the reverse that happens. It's parents who call up the teachers and say, don't accept so-and-so's daughter or don't accept so-and-so's son. And that's what creates the problem. So we have to reverse that and believe in every kid and every kid's potential, because we don't know what can come from them. We have no idea. You know something interesting? Remember I told you about the film 93 Queen? That the rabbi said I could do it if it's going to sanctify God's name. I was at a film screening in Tel Aviv where they showed the film, and a young girl came over to me, and she said to me that she came from a very religious background, and when I looked at her, she didn't look like she was observant at all. She said, had I seen this film years ago, she said, I wouldn't have left. And the next time I heard from her again, she said she actually went back to Bnei Brak and had her mother watch the film. And then when she reached out to me again, she was back with her family. I don't know if it was full-time, but somehow that made her reconnect with her family. It's all about letting kids know that you love them, you care for them, and if they're going through a hard time, you're here to help them, because we all go through hard times. Sometimes the challenges that we have are unseen. We don't know somebody's health. They're going through a challenge. And sometimes challenges are very visible. So when these kids are going through hard times, if you just tell them, I believe in you, I know you're going to get better at some point. Even if I don't see it, I know that you can get better. So it's just that belief in them that's so important. I tell you, I could talk forever, so I hope you all get your CLE credits. I know how important those credits are. Did I miss anybody? And you know what? I don't mind sharing my email address, because if you have a question and you just can't ask it publicly, it's ruchifreier@gmail.com. If you can spell Ruchi, you spell Freier, you'll get me. I know, where is it? Where is it? In here? Oh, okay. Where's the Tehillim? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
So do the number, because I didn't know they were supposed to do names. Yeah, there's numbers on every single one.
So I'm going to do a little raffle here. This is a book of Psalms. For me, prayer is very important, and I'm always praying. So in our organization, Ezras Nashim, every so often we give out different prayer books, and our logo is embossed on the cover. So I brought one special one here, and I will pick one lucky ticket. Now the rule is you have to be in the room, because if you're not here when I call the winning number, I will pick the next number, because I have to take a picture with the winner, and I have to also write something nice in rule. All right. Everybody have your numbers? You have your ticket numbers? Here we go. 0508812. Is there a winner? No? Okay. Oh, one more time. What was that number? It was 0508812. 508803. Okay. We'll try again. 0508893. Every time I always say there is, we're going to go up on stage for this one. Let's go up on stage for this one. You can this way. So everyone should know that I always say that every winner is always a special person. I love this person. I read her book last year, and I thought it was amazing, and I recommend her book to everybody. I love her story. I'm so proud.
It's called God Said What? #MyOrthodox
this on? Yeah? It's called God Said What? # My Orthodox Life. It's by Miriam Rachel Feldman. Yeah.
Hold it up. My camera. I'll take off my glasses.
Okay, let me get one on mine. Sure.
I'm going to take my book, my pen, and I'm going to write something nice.
We're trying. There we go. Okay, I want to, on behalf of Hinda, thank everyone for being with us today. Again, it was a beautiful day. We all could have been spending it elsewhere. I want to thank our presenters, and I want to again congratulate each of those who received recognition today for their part, their role in not merely bringing reform, but true transformation. So thank you. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Those of you who are seeking CLE credit, make sure you fill out the little slip in the back. I'm engaged to a lawyer, and she tells me, make sure everybody gets their CLE. Thank you.
Yeah.